India's AI revolution needs more than ambition. It needs infra scale. According to Deloitte's latest report attracting AI data center infra investment in India, the country may require an additional 45 to 50 million square feet of real estate and 40 to 45 TWh of incremental power by 2030 to meet AI driven demand. The report outlines six key pillars: real estate, power and utilities, connectivity, compute infra, talent, and policy framework that will define India's AI readiness. From policy reform to GPU capacity, from land access to fiber connectivity, the roadmap is ambitious and the window to act is narrow. Joining us now to break down the findings and explain what it takes to India to become a global AI infra hub are the authors of report, Anjani Kumar and Neha Agarwal from Deloitte India. Welcome Neha and Anjani to this special show. My first question to you will be, India has been a strong momentum in AI infrastructure investment recently. You would have seen. What are the key drivers enabling to this shift according to your report? If Anjani, you want to go first?
Sure, thanks at the outset for inviting us for the show. So, over the last few years, we've seen a large adoption of AI by enterprises. Enterprises are clearly seeing this as a way of differentiating themselves from competition and have adopted different use cases, whether it's AI, ML, Gen AI, and now increasingly agentic. So that's clearly one reason why we are seeing adoption and investments in the infrastructure. The second is the government has taken proactively a lot of steps to make sure that India becomes a leader in this space. They announced the India AI mission a couple of years back and have been consistently making investments in the space. So that's the second reason. And the third reason we are seeing is this is an opportunity, not just and more so on the AI infra side, not just for meeting the demands of enterprises, government, academia in India, but also has the potential of being an export oriented market. So think about the way Indian IT services and IT enabled services grew in the early 2000s. We have a similar opportunity now where India can become the data center hub of not just India or Asia, but of the world. Those are the three reasons why we are seeing a significant increase in investments in infrastructure over the last few years.
Right, Anjani did mention about government initiatives, and they have been India AI mission and National Supercomputing Mission shaping the infra ecosystem for AI workloads. Uh, how is your assessment, Neha, on this front?
Well, Ankur, thanks for this question. The Indian government is making significant strides to strengthen AI infrastructure. As Anjani mentioned about the India AI mission, wherein government has already committed to invest 10,000 crores for establishing AI computing and quantum computing infrastructure, and also procuring around 29,000 GPUs. The budget recently spoke about 2,000 crores of budget allocation specifically for this purpose. In addition to that, National Supercomputing Mission will also be a game changer, wherein they are targeting around 24 supercomputers and 70 HPC systems by 2025. Initiatives such as National Deep Tech Startup Policy will fuel early stage startup funding for AI and deep tech startups. So both from a demand perspective as well, we do see a lot of government initiatives. Similarly, from an AI democratizing access of data, India Datasets platform has been announced, wherein it will provide quality data sets to researchers and startups. So we do see that government is making a lot of initiatives. At the state level as well, we do see that states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Odisha, they've come out with the AI policies, and they're focusing on integrating AI across public services, agriculture, and governance. So quite a action happening at the government end as well.
Right, Neha, as you mentioned about the states also coming up with the policy, in the Maharashtra also recent announcement of data center parks have been there. How do you see, Anjani, actually the whole ecosystem of center states tie-up playing out in this?
Yeah, so you spoke about at the introduction of the report that there are six areas that we need to focus on to ensure that India can become the AI center hub of the world. And if you look at each of these elements, whether you look at land, whether you look at power, whether you look at compute, you look at connectivity, you look at talent and enabling policies, across each of the six areas, there is a role that the center has to play, and there is a role that the state has to play. If I take the example of just land, for example, today to set up a data center, it takes up to 40 plus approvals, and it takes about 8 to 12 months to get the land allocated for data center. Now, here is an opportunity where the center can set up like a single window clearance policy, so that all the policies, all the clearances are available at a central place. And the states can play a role in terms of enabling some of the activities on the ground to enable the ease of doing business or increase the ease of doing business. Similarly, if you look at connectivity, today we are seeing a significant amount of data center investments coming in the Mumbai region and in the Chennai region. And one important reason for that is there are landing cables at those two locations. Now, again, from both a center and a state perspective, can we have more and more landing cables across the coast of India? Because that reduces latency, that increases the speed of connectivity, fiber cuts, if you have a data center in the hinterlands, that does impact. So those are, again, areas where center and state can play a role. Similarly, on the connectivity, similarly on the talent part of it, I think clearly data centers require very specialized talent, and that's the talent that has to be trained at the respective states. So I think for us, what is really important is each of the states needs to take initiative and identify literally data center hubs in each of the respective states where there is availability of land. So almost think about it like data center SEZs. Land is available, connectivity is available, water is available, because water is for cooling of these data centers, these AI data centers, which have a lot of requirement of power, which have a lot of heat that gets generated, and cooling needs to be done. So water is available, and more importantly, power is available. And going forward, renewable power is available in those specific hubs. So that's how we see the center and the states coming together to create these hubs in different states, which can then add up to make India one of the leading players.
Right, and that leads to my next question. What role do public-private partnership play in accelerating India's AI readiness, particularly in high-intensity infra like data centers? Neha, if you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. So again, strengthening data center investments require a collaboration from all the key stakeholders. The government plays a crucial role for providing a clear policies, tax incentives, infrastructure support. Telecom companies and CSPs are essential for connectivity and hosting services. Private data center operators and hardware suppliers are important for providing a physical and compute support. Investors and financial institutions are important because they can fund the large scale projects, and industry bodies and academic institutions can foster innovation and talent development. So all in all, the PPP fosters the result, and this is not just the India story, but even if you look at the global story, whether it is US, wherein tech companies collaborated with federal agencies. China, on the other hand, adopted the state level approach of wherein government invested very heavily on the AI infrastructure. Even in the EU, we saw that the frameworks like GIX were there to foster collaboration between member states, and huge investments attraction that we are seeing even in Middle East, whether it is UAE or Saudi. Billions of dollars are being looked at for investing in the AI infrastructure. So clearly there's a lot of partnership which probably the private and the public sector needs to really work around.
Right. Anjani, one thing caught my attention was reports saying traditional IT infra needs a rethink. What are the essential components of AI ready infra in today's context, according to you?
So I think there are 3 or 4 large differences between the traditional infrastructure or traditional IT infrastructure and what are now being globally called AI factories. One is clearly these factories run on GPUs versus the CPUs, which the traditional factories run. So this is clearly these GPUs can do multiple tasks in parallel, versus a sequential processing by CPUs. So these are really at the heart of AI factories. The second is just given the nature of the GPUs, the parallel processing, the amount of power they need is significantly higher than the power that is needed in the traditional context. And a corollary to that is the fact that they need more power, therefore they need more cooling. So now we are seeing completely new technologies like liquid cooling, immersive cooling, GPU level cooling, which wasn't necessarily needed in the CPU space. The third big area of difference is the underlying connectivity, the networks. So again, the idea of making a supercomputer is that you get a lot of these GPUs to work in parallel. And for them to work in parallel, the networks that they use also have to be really fast and very different from the networks in which the CPUs were connected. So, from the core GPU perspective, from connectivity perspective, and from power perspective, those are the three areas that we see as significantly different, and I should also add significantly more expensive than your traditional IT infrastructure.
Right. Let's also talk about real estate and power, which is mentioned in the report. Can India's existing land and cooling system, which is there, realistically can keep pace with the AI-driven growth in data centers, Neha?
So, of course, I mean, considering that, India already has an advantage of, the construction cost being very optimized as compared to, some of the critical countries. We have the real estate availability. I think some of the factors will need to be optimized, whether it is, the approval requirements and the contiguity of land. Those kind of aspects will need to be looked at. But beyond that, I mean, India definitely has an advantage in terms of land availability of power. Data is again, the cost of data is very, very optimized. So clearly, India enjoys that advantage.
Right, and India is also positioning itself as a global AI hub. Anjani, what factors, both regulatory and operational, make India attractive to global data center investors today?
I think there are several factors which has made India a really attractive destination. And the way we are seeing, and I spoke earlier about how this has to be in the context of states. So we're looking at hubs in each state. So the way we are thinking about is the data center for a state is not just for the state, but for India and for the world. And the reason we are seeing a significant amount of investments that are coming into India are basically because of reasons like today, India hosts only about 3% of the global data center capacity, but generates about 20% of the world's data. So a lot of the data that India is generating is actually sitting in countries outside of India. So clearly, there's a gap that companies or multinationals, enterprises are seeing, and they are looking at setting up data centers, infrastructure at the place where data is generated. So that's clearly one. The second, like Neha spoke about, the cost of land, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of power, the cost of data connectivity. Each of those four elements is amongst the cheapest and most optimal in the world. So for an organization to set up a data center in India and generate an ROI on it is far faster and far higher than setting it up anywhere else in the world. So that's the cost aspect. The third, as we see, India hosting about 2,000 odd global capability centers in India, we are also seeing that a lot of the AI COEs are being built in India. The talent is in India, but the compute stays in the parent countries. So now we are looking at GCCs also, looking at saying if the entire use cases are being developed in India, if the engineering is done in India, then why should the compute not be in India? So we are looking at GCCs also setting up some of the captive data centers in India. Lastly, as you look at sovereign data concerns, the RBI is thinking about it. The government's spoken about it. For some of our highly regulated industries, whether it's pharma, whether it's banking, there is a need to host that data in India. And sometimes there is a need to actually host the data on-prem. So there also we are seeing some of the largest banks, large pharma companies, large enterprises also start to look at setting up captive data centers, because one, that helps with sovereignty of data, but it also helps in reduction of the cost. So those are the 3, 4 reasons why we are seeing a significant boom and why India is such an attractive destination for enterprises across the world, whether it's hyperscalers, whether it's co-location providers, whether it's GCCs, whether it's large enterprises, whether it's conglomerates, all of them looking at India as an extremely attractive destination to make these investments.
Indeed, but the report also makes a strong policy suggestions from creating data center zones to enabling access to dark fiber. Neha, I want to understand from you what regulatory changes should be the government's top priority. We heard some of the suggestions which even Anjani talked about. How do you see it?
Yeah, so I mean, see, beyond that, I mean, if we talk about, the AI-driven infrastructure, the requirements are very different from a conventional real estate or from a conventional data center. And therefore, I mean, beyond the hardcore requirements, whether it is, the land approvals, etc., there are also certain specifications that probably are very, very specific for these kind of data centers. So, for example, like a windowless structure, specialized cooling systems, minimal parking requirements, those are not really required here. And therefore, an alignment to the National Building Code is very, very important, wherein a separate category needs to be created for data centers. Similarly, in order to ensure that there is an operational continuity happening, Essential Services Maintenance Act needs to create a recognized data center as a special category. Similarly, in order to fast track approvals, maybe a high level regulatory reforms committee, which was announced in the budget of 2025, should be there. Beyond that, again, from a power perspective, we have an advantage wherein most of our grids are actually, less than a decade old. So definitely investing in grid modernization, renewable integration, and providing incentives like weighted deduction on expenditure for captive renewable definitely will add a lot of incentives there. Beyond that, there are also issues with respect to right of way, wherein the fair compensation and streamlining single windows is very, very important, so that there is a right power access which is also provided. Similarly, wherein whether it is with respect to the time of settlement of the power usages, or whether it is those charges should be aligned between different states, and in fact the state interstate transfers, if those could be done. From a connectivity perspective, again, there have been a lot of initiatives like, National Optical Fiber Network, which have been rolled out. 5G is being rolled out. But some of the things that could be additionally done is to create a cross-connect policy between the campuses of data centers, which is again a very wide level practice across different other countries like Singapore and Australia, wherein dark fibers can be accessed to unlicensed entities for their captive purposes. Similarly, a robust connectivity and backhaul should be created in tier 2 cities, wherein probably there's a lot more connectivity available. From a compute standpoint as well, in terms of there could be incentives which could be given in form of subsidies to make it more accessible for GPUs. From a policy framework perspective, there are a couple of areas wherein definitely this would require attention. So clarity on permanent establishment guidelines, specifically for data centers being hosting overseas customers' data. That is again very one important piece that should be addressed. Similarly, for accessing data sets, again, amendments in Public Records Act should be there, and alignment definitely without compromising the Personal Data Protection Act, and the sovereignty should be there. Now, the piece that also requires attention is more from a copyrights and patents perspective, wherein these AI-generated content should have this, specification with respect to ownership, and they should have a clarity in terms of the patent requirements. So that's broadly what it is.
Right. Neha, you mentioned about compute capacity in your report. Also, compute capacity, particularly GPU availability, is flagged as a constraint. How urgent is this, and what are the steps India must take to build exaflop scale AI infrastructure? Anjani?
Yeah, I think you would have recently read the news with all the countries in the GCC investing heavily in buying GPUs. So clearly, that is the first step. unless and until the infrastructure is in place, we really can't work on AI workloads. So I think it's the most critical step to ensure that the compute capacity is made available, and India provides access to the government, to startups, to enterprises, to academia, to social impact organizations, so that they can start using different AI use cases. I think one positive development has been that the US Diffusion Act has recently been reneged. That was an act that had the capacity or had the potential to actually restrict the number of GPUs to 50,000 over the next 2 to 3 years to India. Now that's been reneged, so that definitely gives us an opportunity to import more GPUs. And I think over a longer period of time, it's also critical that we as India develop the skills, develop the infrastructure to build our own semiconductors, to build our own GPUs, because, given the geopolitical constraints, we cannot always stay dependent on other countries for GPUs. So that's the longer term plan. And in the short term, we need to make sure that GPUs are made available to all stakeholders within the ecosystem.
Right. Now, with the time constraint, I want short answers from both of you regarding R&D, which is something which is important for any sector, but now AI focused R&D is the need of the hour. What should be done to fix this? If you can answer in 30 seconds.
I think starting from some of the investments in R&D centers, that's clearly one. I think there is a lot of fundamental research that's happening outside of India by the Indian diaspora. So if we can get them to come back to India and do the R&D here, that's second. I think third is just building a culture where some of not just success is celebrated, but sometimes failure is also celebrated, because fundamental research will also lead to failure. It won't automatically lead to dollars or revenues or immediate results. So I think building that culture of supporting failure, learning from failure, and then building is also key. And lastly, I think just from curriculum perspective, from an industry academia integration perspective and collaboration perspective, and that's going to be critical, because the kind of courses that we are teaching, the kind of skills we are building in our colleges, if that gets driven by what the industry needs or by what the future of AI needs, I think that will also lead for us to develop more fundamental research in India.
Neha, I want to get one final word from you on the sustainability lens. How India should balance rapid data center growth with environmental and the stability goals?
I think clearly, as we speak to data center providers, countries across the world, all of them are looking for a large part, if not 100%, of the data centers being powered by renewable energy. So India has set itself fairly ambitious goals, and according to some estimates, over the next 5 to 7 years, about 8 to 10% of the world's power will go into powering data centers. So it's not an insignificant amount. So it's going to be critical that this power is renewable. And I think if I look at the overall infrastructure in India today, about 47% of the power that we generate is renewable. So, India already has access to renewable power, and we have, ambitious plans of going to 500 gigawatts of renewable power over the next few years. So, I think that is available. But again, making that available to the data centers in the locations they are in the states they are in the hubs they are in a way that is economically feasible, is going to be the key over the next 3 to 4 years.
All right, thank you so much, Neha and Anjani, joining at this hour for this special discussion on the report. I wish you all the best for all the Indians, because we want to be data center hub of India, and as the report say, by 2030 things could be different. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.